Hey guys, it's Austin here with OutJeeping. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to replace leaf spring bushings. Now today, I'm going to be doing it on my Jeep behind me, but it's pretty much going to be similar on all vehicles that have leaf springs. So let's get started. Alright, so the bushing that we're going to be replacing today is this rear leaf spring bushing over here. And these are 3.5-inch Rubicon Express leaf springs, and they also make a kit for replacing bushings. I'll post a link in the description below on where you can find them. Now, I knew this bushing was bad because over the summer I installed these shackle relocation brackets, and I noticed that this bushing was pretty much junk, so I'm going to be replacing that today. Now, a couple ways you can see if your bushing is going bad is if you have any play or slop when you're driving down the road, or sometimes if your vehicle is leaning to a side or the other, that might be a good indication that your bushing is bad. So to get at this one, basically what I'm going to do is jack up the vehicle and let the axle droop down. That way there should be no weight on this joint right here. That way we can be able to unbolt this shackle, push it out of the way, and then get at that bushing and replace it. Alright, so I got a little bit of tension under the axle with the jack, and basically I'm going to take out this bolt and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. That way we should be able to drop the axle on a pivot. That way we can work on it when it's down here, because this is still going to spring up a little bit and you don't want it working up here where it's hard to get at things and stuff. So that's what I'm going to do, is disconnect it right here. Now, depending on what bolts you have and what kits or whatever is on your Jeep, this might be a 21mm or a 7/16. As you can see, that likes to spring back, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to push this out of the way, and now we'll take off the other side. Now we can proceed to lower the axle a little bit more just to give us enough room. Make sure you have enough room on your brake line and shocks. Otherwise, those will limit you from going down any further. Alright, so as you can see, this bushing is pretty shot. The centerpiece comes out pretty easily. And yeah, it's worn in there. So a technique that you can use to get this rubber piece out is actually taking a drill bit, and you basically want to walk it all around the surface, and what will happen is actually the rubber bushing will start to walk out with the bit. So I'm going to be using that technique today, and I'll show you guys how that works. Alright, so the walking technique didn't necessarily work on this bushing here because the rubber was still pretty stuck onto this outer ring, which is the next thing we got to get off. And basically you just need to get enough rubber out there so you can fit a Sawzall blade through. Because what we're going to be doing is cutting the outside ring on either one or two spots. That way it can help compress it in. That way we should be able to hammer and chisel the rest of the bushing out. Alright, so after I cut it and beat on it for around 5 minutes or so, it's starting to come out. There it is. There you go. So that's the bushing we have there. Now we're just left with the hole. And then we can press in our new bushings, which shouldn't be hard at all. Alright, so for installing new bushings, since I got like polyurethane bushings, it's pretty simple. We got 2 halves that we're going to put on either side, and then we have a center pin that we're just going to push through the center, and it should help expand the bushing out so it stays nice and firm in there. And I already can see that this is going to be a nice tight fit because I can't even push that in by hand really. So we're going to grease this up on the inside of this eyelet here and on the outside of the bushing, and then press them in by hand. If we can't, then we might need to use a clamp or some source like that. Now if you have the same style rubber bushings that were in here originally, basically these guys have to be pressed in. So if you have either a clamp or if you have this off of the vehicle, you can take it to a hydraulic press and press in these new bushings if you can't fit them in with any hand tools or anything like that. But hopefully this should be nice and easy. So take some high quality grease and start to grease up the inside. Then you can do the same thing to this outer. Alright, so I just got that on barely. I'm going to take a clamp actually and see if I can clamp this into place because that's pretty tight. Alright, so I got a C-clamp on there, and then you can see it start to go in with the C-clamp. And we'll give it a little bit of a squeeze right at the end to make sure it goes all the way in. Alright, that's one side. Now we got to do the other. Alright, so it's actually a little bit easier for me to hammer this in instead of using a clamp and trying to hold it. As you can see, we are all the way in. So now the last thing we got to do is put our metal sleeve in. Alright, so now when putting in this pin, we're basically going to do the same thing as we did with the bushings. Basically lube up the inside of the hole and the outside over here. As you can see, this bushing kit was actually not the right one. So I actually had to do a little modification on cutting this down and shaving a little bit of this bushing, which I recommend you don't do. So then hopefully I should be able to get this started. So if you start to push in the sleeve and it actually pushes out the other side bushing, it's better just to press it in like I am here. That way it won't kick out the other bushing and it'll force it through. Alright, so now we can get ready to put everything back together. I like to use a lot of anti-seize on everything because up here in the rust belt, bolts like to rust and it's a pain in the butt in getting them off. So just a little bit of anti-seize in there. Then we can fit our shackle over. And we got our other washer and nut we can fit on the back side. I always like to tighten this up by hand, that way I don't over torque it with the impact. And I'm not going to go crazy tight until we get all the weight of the vehicle back on the ground, and then we can cinch these down. That way there's no binding in the actual bushing when it's at ride height. As you can see with this other bushing, it's also looking pretty bad too. Too bad I don't have another bushing for that. I only bought a kit with that one size, so I'll have to do this later on. Straighten that out a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to put the wheels back on. Now we can go and tighten this up. Right there's about good. Lastly, don't forget to tighten up your lug nuts. Alright, so basically the trick to getting these old bushings out is to use whatever technique you find best useful. For me, it was basically just cutting this and taking a chisel and working it out to be able to remove it completely. And another technique that didn't really work for me today, but usually does in other bushings, is to use the walking technique with the drill bit. Basically it works its way around the perimeter, and soon that rubber bushing will walk its way out. Another thing is if your bushing is located in a different spot than how mine was, obviously you're going to take off more components of your suspension to be able to get at it. Mine was pretty simple with it just right on the rear. So I hope you guys learned something today. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like and subscribe to the OutJeeping YouTube channel to help keep these videos coming. And if you have any questions, make sure to comment below and I'll be happy to answer. Until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video.